So this isn't just about food insecurity. This isn't just about delivering meals. It's about how do we actually just change the fabric of our country to inspire more kindness, more community orientation, stronger communities, stronger neighborhoods. And we're doing that one lasagna at a time to start, but I'm really excited to see where it goes in the future.
Okay. Hola y bienvenidos. Welcome to Molé Mama Cooking with Love. I have a very special guest with us this week. I am so excited that I have Lasagna Love with us. Rhiannon is here, and she is going to be telling us about this amazing charitable organization that she started during the pandemic. And she is sharing lasagnas with people that need it and finding volunteers. And it's grown into this thing that's now all across the country. And it's just so lovely. And she said yes, and she's going to talk to us so we can learn more about her. So I'm delighted to introduce you. I'm so thrilled that you are here with us today.
Oh, thank you. I'm so excited to be here.
Okay, so you started this movement at the beginning of the pandemic. And I believe that I saw that you have a chef's background, and Mama Love, I think, was it. But where did this idea come from? How did it get started?
So honestly, just at the beginning of the pandemic, I think being in California and watching everything shut down so suddenly, I was just feeling helpless and watching people around me go through losing childcare, starting to lose jobs even early on. I remember one mom who had an immunocompromised son, and she didn't know how she was going to get groceries because she didn't feel safe going to the grocery store. So I was just watching all of this happen and feeling like I have to do something, but all the volunteer opportunities were shut down, and there wasn't anything that existed that I could tap into. I love to cook, as you mentioned. So, I mean, I wish I could say I was a professional chef. I've done a lot of different things in different restaurants, but I've been cooking since I was really, really little. And cooking is just my joy and my passion. And I love it. And so does my 3.5-year-old. And so one day I just decided that's it. We're going to start making extra meals. We're going to find people that need them. And this is how I'm going to help. And that's really where it began.
What a lovely, lovely idea. Now I have to, because there's so many recipes out there in the world. So why lasagna? Like, how did it end up being lasagna?
It's funny. So there's actually two answers. So the first is practical, and the second is really about what lasagna symbolizes. So in the beginning, we were making anything that we could basically get ingredients for. So some days it was chicken and rice, some days it was spinach pie, some days it was lasagna, whatever basically showed up at our door. But over and over, I was able to get ingredients for lasagna. They seemed to be things that just were in stock: pasta, sauce, ground beef. And it's a pretty flexible recipe. So even if you're missing one thing, you can kind of just work around it. But the other piece of it is that it just felt like the right dish. To me, it's about comfort. It's the meal that you bring when somebody has had a new baby, or a neighbor is going through a rough time, or it's the thing that you bring to somebody to say, hey, I'm thinking about you, I care about you, here's some love and kindness. And
Mm.
I didn't want to just bring a meal to somebody. I wanted to bring that sense of warmth and kindness, that there's somebody out here that's thinking about you. There's somebody that gets it. There's somebody that wants to make your life a little easier for a night. And lasagna to me just kind of did that.
That is so beautiful. Like, I'm teary-eyed just thinking about that, that
Oh,
it's so lovely because I grew up, I'm Mexican and Portuguese, and whenever anybody was having a bad time, we always took them enchiladas. So that was our food. Again, it's a comfort food with
yeah.
tortillas and ground beef, very similar to lasagna. So when I saw this, I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And I have to go back and just say, I think it's your photos of you cooking with your little daughter are so sweet, so
Oh, thank you.
cute. Aw.
She's such a big part of this. And I think I mean, the fact that one, I mean, she loves cooking, and I love it because I love cooking, and I feel like I've imparted that on her, and that's beautiful that we can share that. But just for her to have this experience at such a young age, I feel like it's going to give her really positive, but also, I mean, really important memories of the pandemic, and like what it means when people around you are struggling, and what our role is in the community. So she's a peach.
That's fantastic. All right. So is this your first charitable organization, or have you done something like this before? Because I'm like, how did you get this going so fast? And you got a
It,
website. I mean, how did this, because you did it fast. You did it really
a lot.
fast.
So it is my first charitable organization. I feel like there's a little bit of fate here where I've had so many different experiences throughout my life, right? Like I've worked in kitchens, I've worked in restaurants, I went to business school, I've worked in tech startups. So I have this really, what most people would think is a very weird skill set. And somehow the universe just put me in this place where I had an idea to cook food for neighbors. And then more people signed on and more people signed on. And I had to develop a back end system of how do you manage these people? And then, I had to figure out, okay, well, how do we grow to other cities and how do we inspire people to want to take on leadership roles? Because we're almost entirely volunteer based. And I just feel like all of the skills that I've built in all these random parts of my life magically came together to make this grow and work. And it's not many people like have built websites before, but have also made lots of lasagnas, right? It's just those two things don't often go hand in hand. But for me, it's been, I think it was a little bit of luck and a little bit of fate intervening.
That is, and you said yes, which is
Hmm.
fantastic. Because I think some of us get those
Yeah.
ideas, but you said yes. That's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's, I mean, I've written about this a little bit on my blog, but I think part of why this happened is that I've I've really spent a lot of the last few years thinking about mindset and how do you be open to possibility in the face of really difficult things? How do you, instead of getting frustrated at your kids, say like this is amazing, let's, and I took that from the Ben Zander, who wrote a really wonderful book with his wife called The Art of Possibility. But it's, so when the pandemic hit, I feel like it was so easy to just say, oh my gosh, this is so hard, let's hunker down, let's like get through it, let's struggle, let's just embrace the struggle. But instead it was, wow, okay, so my job has slowed to an almost complete halt, that means I have a lot of free time. Well, what could I do with free time? And thinking just, what's possible now? Well, now I have a lot of time to help other people who might be struggling, let's like figure out what that looks like. And so it's the possibility and the saying yes to people who wanted to help that I think is really at the foundation of how this was able to come to be.
I just love it. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wish I had more insight, but it's just
No.
so incredibly lovely. And I think lots of us have lots of different skills, and sometimes that just getting started and going is challenging. And so your story is so inspiring because you said yes and you made it happen quickly because you had, like you said, high tech and lasagna. Okay, so right, how many of us can do that? That's
Not,
fabulous.
I'm not going to say it's been easy. I don't want to like mislead anybody that this has been all peaches and wonderful and like totally. It's been it's crazy and challenging, and I'm growing every day in ways that I never thought I would, and I'm growing way faster than I ever thought I would. But to just saying yes definitely helps.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier that you started cooking at a really young age. So was that 10? Was that 6? And how did the cooking thing happen for you?
I think it came from my mom. So my I have really early memories of, even at I think probably 6 or 7, baking for the local library bake sale. And just like I
Mm.
made cookie pizza, and I learned how to make fondant and all of these just really cool creative things that we would then bring to the library so they could sell them and raise money. So I think it's just always been a part of my childhood, of sort of who I am. I have so many memories, especially around the holidays, of cooking with my family. We have a traditional um, Stollen recipe that comes from my mom and her side of the family who's German. And I remember, just being with my mom and my brother in the kitchen, and it's like a 6-hour project at least. So all day on a Saturday, we're just like letting the dough rise and snacking on the raisins and dusting the finished product with powdered sugar and wrapping it up to give away to neighbors. And so I think it's just always been a part of who I am.
So very community focused, very cooking, very sharing and generous with your food. So similar to me. I haven't done
I
it.
know this is a perfect
Right.
match.
It is because we would make tamales or we would make that very, very similar memories. That's
We do have
fantastic.
lasagna mamas who make enchiladas.
Oh, you do. So we might have to talk
Mhm.
later.
We
'Cause-
will.
yes, definitely. All right. So can you tell our listeners, where are you located and are there lasagna mamas in other cities? Like, where are you right now? You said you're growing.
We're we're everywhere. So this started in San Diego. So we still have a really big core group here. I spend half of my time on the East Coast in Boston. So there's a pretty big pocket there as well. But we have over 5,000 lasagna mamas across the country. We have
Oh my,
volunteers who've signed up in every single state. I think we've delivered to 46 or 47 of those states, and we're just waiting on families to sign up in the last three. So our Hawaii and Alaska, and I think the last one is Wyoming, lasagna mamas can make some deliveries.
that is outstanding.
It's bananas.
5,000?
I don't even at this point I can't even I don't even know what to say.
That is outstanding.
Yeah.
I'm on behalf of everybody who's gotten, and I've read your website and the endorsements, and some of them I teared up when I read what people are saying about the meals that
Yeah.
they receive. But thank you for being a really amazing human,
Oh my gosh.
especially when we need amazing humans so desperately. So that's just amazing. And all the other mamas, if you're listening,
I
thank
would pass
you.
that. I was going to say I would pass that
Yeah.
on to all of our incredible volunteers across the country who honestly are like clamoring for more families to feed. So
Oh,
this wouldn't exist without any of them. This is just it's a movement of love and kindness from so many volunteers.
that's outstanding. Now, first of all, how does somebody sign up to be a mama
Mhm.
if they're interested in making lasagna or maybe enchiladas? So how does that work?
So we've made it super easy. So if you go to the website, lasagnalove.org, there's a button to volunteer. There's a video that tells you exactly how it works. And then there's a sign up form, and that gives us all the information we need to get you matched to somebody nearby. So you'll tell us how often you want to cook. So some people, they can make one a month just because, that's what they can do. And that's awesome. And then other people, will make four a week. So it really runs the spectrum. And we want to make it enjoyable and easy, no matter how much time you have, what your budget is, any of that stuff. So once you have signed up, you'll be matched with either a regional leader who lives in your area or a director who lives, at least in your sort of general state. And then that person will help get you matched up to a family, sort of at the intervals that you've signed up for. And then you just reach out when you get assigned a family, you reach out and text them and say, hey, like I'm your lasagna mama or lasagna papa. We have lasagna papas too. I can drop off this day and time if that works for you. And once they confirm, you just make the lasagna and drop it at their doorstep, completely contactless, and just text them when it's there so they can come out to get it.
That's lovely. Oh my goodness. Okay. And if somebody's listening that needs some help right
Yeah.
now,
Yeah.
how does somebody request a meal?
So that's just as easy. So there's a button on the website that is for if you want to request, and we have forms both in English and in Spanish. So you just fill it out. You can check your zip code first if you're listening to this and you're not in California and you want to know, is there a lasagna mama near me? You can put your zip code in and it'll tell you. But then you just sign up, and as soon as we have a spot open up, which is usually within a week, maybe two, depending on the neighborhood you're in, you'll get a text message from your lasagna mama saying when she'll want to drop it off. And the thing I would say to anybody who's listening that's sort of like, well, I don't know if I need a lasagna, is we define struggling very broadly. And that's really intentional because struggling during the pandemic means so many different things. So for a lot of families, it is financial. So people have lost income, they've lost jobs, they're trying to make ends meet. And food insecurity is a very, very real issue right now. So if you're in the financially struggling category, like absolutely sign up. But I would say to anybody who's not necessarily financially struggling, this has been really hard, especially on moms and parents, but also on a lot of others. And so if you're struggling emotionally, if this just feels like a really overwhelming time and there's more to do than you have time for, and you're trying to figure out how do I work remotely and distance learn kids and figure out like what are the COVID safety protocols, that's also, a perfectly awesome reason to raise your hand and say, you know what, I would love if a neighbor brought me dinner one night. So don't be embarrassed or don't hesitate. There's no question of, I don't know if I deserve one, or I'm sure someone else needs one more than I do. There's plenty of lasagnas to go around. And honestly, making one for you is a gift for us. So sign up so that one of us has the gift of giving, because we'd really love to, we'd love to bring you a lasagna.
That is so beautiful. I mean, again, I think there's a lot of truth in that and the gift of giving and allowing people to actually share. And because I know that I've offered to do things and people are like, that's too much work for you. I'm like, no, you don't understand. That brings me so much joy
Right.
to give that to you, to help
I'm
you
so glad
out.
I'm so glad you get it, because I think a lot of people do feel like they're putting a burden, and it's, if I offered, I meant it. Like that was genuine. And plus, like selfishly, it feels really good to be on this end as well. So we,
It
we both get
does.
something out of it.
Well, and I think it's empowering to feel like you're helping, because I think that's one of the things that I have felt is with everything going on, I'm like, what can I do to help? And you have come up with a way that I think is highly accessible and easy for people who want to help to do something that's meaningful in a very
Yeah.
fast way, which is fantastic because it
Yeah.
is. I know for me, it feels it just feels uh, very tough to watch people suffering and having a hard time and feeling like I
Yeah.
don't know how to reach them. I don't know how to connect with them. I don't know how to help them.
Yeah. Yeah, this is just, I think that's part of also why we've had so many volunteers sign up once they heard about it, is that this is something that is accessible. It's not a huge time commitment. It's sort of as you can do it. It's not, you don't have to commit to 10 lasagnas a week for 3 months. It's, like do this when it works for you. And that makes it easy to say yes.
Okay. Now I have to ask, does everybody use the same lasagna recipe, or can they like be a little creative? Or
Oh
like,
my gosh.
because I have to know.
Not
So,
everybody even uses lasagna recipes at this point. No, it's,
okay. All right.
we definitely have people that will sign up and say, I've never made a lasagna before. Can you please send me your recipe? Yes, we can. So we have an official Lasagna Love recipe. But that being said, we have tons of volunteers who are former chefs, who have family recipes dating back who knows how long, who basically say like, I'm never going to cook a lasagna, but I make really great fill in the blank, oftentimes enchiladas, especially here in San Diego. So it's totally open. I think as long as it's a sort of a casserole sized dish that sends that message of warmth and kindness and feeds a family, we're not picky.
That's beautiful. Now, I mentioned earlier that I read on your website some of the testimonials from the people that have received your food, but can you share a couple of them with our listeners? Because they're so moving how I
Yeah,
read them.
I certainly can. It's interesting. There's the stories that I think of on I because I read the stories every week of the people who are requesting, and so that can be that can be heartbreaking to do. But then seeing on the flip side people's responses when they do get a lasagna, it's a reminder of this is why, like, okay, this is why we're here. We are helping. But I remember one woman in California who signed up, and somebody brought her a lasagna that week, and she messaged me saying, "This is literally the nicest thing anybody has ever done for me. I didn't know there were people that were this kind in the world." And that made me smile, but it also broke my heart that a stranger bringing you lasagna is the nicest thing. That's like, oh, come on, world, we can do better. Like, this should be like just one of many things. So, but that's also really motivating to, all right, like we have to do this more, because this shouldn't be such a surprise. Um, and then we've had stories from people. I remember we had somebody who had lost their mother-in-law to COVID just that week, and she signed up. And when she got the lasagna, she said, this is the first time that our family has sat down together to eat a meal since she passed away. Like, thank you for just bringing us together for a night. And like, I'm going to cry now, but there's so many different ways that we can show kindness through this, and everybody sees it a little bit differently, and everybody experiences a little bit differently, but everybody experiences something positive, and that's just really incredible.
That is incredible. Now I'm all teared up. So like,
You and me both.
yeah, like I'm trying to see my notes. I can't see them anymore. That's okay. um, but it's so lovely. Like, and I always talk about food is love, and it's a love language for many of us, and you're out there doing it. So, and people are being moved and touched by it. So what have been like, how has this changed you? Because it's only been like 9 months and all these, you're in 5,000, 5,000 people now, and you've touched people in 47 states. So how has it changed you?
It's a good question, and it's something that I wish I actually had more time to reflect on in the busyness of just doing the thing every day. I think, I mean, there's a couple different things that come to mind. I think one is reading these stories every week and hearing from people. So I think one thing that I've learned is, or one thing that's happened is it's really helped me understand what the pandemic means for the average American. So I think it's very easy during a pandemic that, we're isolated, we're in our bubble, we know what's going on with our immediate family and our immediate friends, but outside of that, we're relying on news stories and statistics. And it's one thing to read, here's how many people have lost their jobs. It's another thing to read story after story of a single mom who's lost her job and how she's trying to feed her 6 kids, or a father who's lost his income and doesn't know where to turn because he's never had to ask for help before. It's so much more real. And I think being connected to that, for me and for a lot of our volunteers, is really powerful because it puts real people behind what's going on in the world. It puts real stories and real faces, and really allows us to have a better understanding of what it means to struggle in a time like this. So that, I mean, that's I think a pretty big thing I've learned. Um, I mean, just on a personal level, I think there's so many skills I've learned, but I've also just learned to be just open and thoughtful and patient. And not that I like didn't have any of those beforehand, but now, now I'm running an organization that's across the entire country, and I have to, I'm not just working for myself anymore. My day to day has a direct impact on volunteers and families and our leadership, and so there's just a lot of growth that comes from that, a lot of just self-reflection and really having to develop as a person and as a leader. And it's been hard, but it's also been really, really rewarding to be able to have that opportunity. So I think there's a lot I've learned on that front as well.
Okay. Yes, I can see how it would definitely be a big deal and growth. And that's why I wanted to ask you, because it hasn't been a lot of time at all for all these changes to happen. And we spoke earlier, or you mentioned that it hasn't all been easy, and you have a big organization. So can you share with our listeners what some of your biggest challenges have been?
I can. I don't know if they'll be interesting to the average listener, but I'm happy to share them. I mean, things like, we went from 500 volunteers in September to 5,000 now, right? Like, how do you manage a network of 5,000 people? Like, how do you even think about that? And when that changed in the span of 60 days, so just, I mean, a challenge of, okay, how do we build in more leadership? How do we recruit more volunteer leaders who can help us find families and answer questions? And I mean, we didn't used to have a leadership team, and now we have a leadership team that's all volunteers. Like, what do they do on a daily basis? How do we manage their time so that they're feeling like they can still have the capacity to do this while also having, their day jobs and their families, but they really want to have a bigger impact. So what does that even look like? What does an organizational structure for a 5,000 person organization look like when it evolves overnight? So I think that was a really big challenge, is like, how do we actually grow in a way that takes care of all the people that are in the organization and doesn't leave anyone behind. And that's, I mean, that's software challenges, that's people challenges, that's like, I mean, across the board, any challenge you can think of that happens in a business, like we've probably faced it in the last 60 days. Um, but it's also been really awesome to watch people step up and to watch things change so rapidly. I think it's a startup, right? It's a nonprofit startup. It's which is unusual, but there's a lot of excitement and energy that comes with that as well.
Okay, I think that's interesting because for anybody to grow that fast, oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I wanted to get from you, what advice do you have for any of our listeners who are trying to sort out how to help during this pandemic? Like you had this amazing
Yeah.
idea of sharing food, but you clearly took action and said yes. So what advice do you have for anybody else who might have an idea for something else?
So I guess there's two answers there. So if you already have an idea, just give it a shot, right? Like if there's not anybody already doing what you're doing and you have an idea that you think might help people, just put it out there. Just start and see what happens because you'll learn so much in starting that you never know where it'll go. And then I think there's another group of people that want to help, but they don't really know what to do. They're like, well, I can't make lasagna and I don't really want to just donate money, which donations are great, awesome. But, some people want to have a more like personal impact, but they don't know how to do it or what to do. And I would say, for me, I love cooking, but what are the things that you love to do? Maybe you love mowing lawns. Maybe you love reading stories to kids. Maybe you like whatever it is, there's somebody out there who needs what you love doing right now and who's struggling to do it themselves. So just reach out and ask your neighbors, ask your friends, post on Facebook, post on Nextdoor, just say, hey, like, I'm happy to mow 5 lawns in the next month, or I'm happy to do story time on FaceTime for any parent who just needs an hour break. And someone's going to say yes, and you're going to change somebody's life. Even in that 1 hour, it's going to make a huge difference. So just go for it.
Okay, you have fired me up.
What's your thing? What are you going to do? All right. You tell me.
I think I'm going to be making enchiladas for you.
Love it.
And because I can't believe how quickly our time is gone. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners?
I think the only last piece that we didn't get a chance to talk about is that, I mean, we've talked a lot about how Lasagna Love gets food to people, but at the core of this, it really is about scaling kindness. How do we inspire more acts of kindness? So there's a network effect. Someone delivers a lasagna, and that family who's at the receiving end, they're inspired to do other things. And we don't know about them. We can't measure that. But there's studies out there that say if you're on the receiving end of a random act of kindness, you're going to go do nice things for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, even 6 people. And so this isn't just about food insecurity. This isn't just about delivering meals. It's about how do we actually just change the fabric of our country to inspire more kindness, more community orientation, stronger communities, stronger neighborhoods. And we're doing that one lasagna at a time to start, but I'm really excited to see where it goes in the future.
Okay, I am so touched and so fired up because I agree with you. It's like, how can we inspire more kindness? And I love random acts of kindness. And I don't need to tell you what I've done in the past, but it's always like, I'm always so surprised at how it comes back or what I hear. It's just amazing. Like you're talking, it does have this amazing effect. And I agree, it's time to shine the light on some kindness because we need it more than ever. We need that. So thank you for amplifying it.
Totally with you.
Thank you for, being a voice and a champion and spreading that around. And as you were talking, I'm like, okay, this is the woman who we need. We need to talk about why we need to be kind to each other. And you're motivating so many others to do the same. So I'm just beyond honored that you were willing to talk to me and just keep shining your light so brightly because, oh my goodness, I know you're making a huge difference in all the people that are helping you. It's just beautiful, beautiful thing. So thank you.
You're welcome, but also thank you I'm just so grateful to have the opportunity to talk about it more and to be able to spread the idea to new people. And And all of your listeners, no matter what your next act of kindness is, I hope that they're just inspired to take it, because that's what we're here for. So thank you so much for inviting me to chat with you about this.
Absolutely. All right. For our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember to add the most important ingredient to every recipe you make, your love. And as my mama always said to me as we said our goodbyes, que Dios te bendiga. May God bless you and be well and spread kindness.